Hi, I'm State Representative Bruce Ayers, and I want to thank you for tuning in to my legislative update. As a state representative, I realize how important it is to be accessible and to keep my constituents informed in matters before Beacon Hill. And I also want to thank Quincy Access Cable for allowing me the opportunity to produce this show. My guest tonight is Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for being on the show.
Happy to be here. Always good to be in Quincy.
It's nice to have you here. I know you're here quite a bit, and it's great to have you in the city to talk about some of the things that's happening on Beacon Hill today.
You know, it's never boring on Beacon Hill, and as someone who is also from a coastal community, I love being here. So thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Maybe before we get started, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and some of your experience.
Yeah, really happy to. So I'm currently Lieutenant Governor in Massachusetts, partnered up with a fabulous teammate in Maura Healey. Really proud to be part of the first all-female team leading the Commonwealth, and grateful, a lot of gratitude for that role. But I'm actually not a native of Massachusetts. I didn't have the good fortune to be born here. I'm actually a Navy brat. My dad's a Navy career man. He was born and raised in Lynn, Massachusetts, so North Shore gal. Born in Hawaii, lived all over, and ended up coming back to Massachusetts to go to college in Salem. Attended Salem State, so go Vikings, proud Salem State alum, and really feel fortunate that I, came back to Massachusetts, or came to Massachusetts, fell in love with the community. Was fortunate enough to be mayor there, first woman mayor elected in 2005, and after 16 years in office there, ran for lieutenant governor, and fortunate enough to be partnered up with Governor Healey, and we're grateful to be in a position of leadership here in Massachusetts.
That's great. And tell some of the viewers that what made you want to run for lieutenant governor after your tenure as mayor?
Being mayor is just a fabulous job. If you care about where you live and really love the place, you can have a really big influence. And I really am grateful for the work that I was able to do in Salem. I know Mayor Koch, long time, we were almost had the exact same tenure. And I think he shares that sort of dialed in, what I like to say when you're mayor is no hiding. You really get to work on issues that matter. If you think about the branches of government we all rely on, local government, educating your kids, keeping your neighborhood safe, investing in those places you make memories, driving a local economy. There's so much to do, and I really enjoyed it. And after doing it for 16 years, I felt like it was important that that experience, what's happening on the ground in our communities, I might be able to benefit the next administration and bring that lens to how we think about state government, the power of convening, the ability to shape and shift policies, where we send resources, how we think about having strong communities. I think both Governor Healey and I believe strongly, when our communities are thriving, our Commonwealth's thriving. And so for me, this was an opportunity to do that work at another level.
Absolutely. And I think, as mayor, you look at it through a different lens. You're working with the city council, you're working with the school committee. You really see how the funding trickles down where the rubber meets the road. So it's an excellent background, I think, for a lieutenant governor to have.
I agree. I think the thing about particularly cities, when you're a mayor, you have to know a little bit about a lot of things. You chair the school committee in many cases, and certainly in Salem and Quincy and in many other places as well. You have to worry about infrastructure. You have to deliver services. And I always said, you always want to think about how you can deliver them better. Good cities don't happen by accident. It takes an aligned vision, people really working together, but it also takes support from the state level. You can't do the amazing things that are, at work and at play here in Quincy that you're a strong partner on happen when you have that kind of aligned vision and people working together. So I'm really grateful to have that local lens, but to be in a position to help from a different perch.
Well, it's great. You and Governor Healey, I think, bring a new energy and a lot of accessibility to the Connor office. I know my colleagues at the State House talk about it. Could you talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that you and the governor are working on right now?
Yeah. I got to tell you, Bruce, some of the number one challenge that we hear about no matter what community we're in is housing. So one of our first actions was to form a new cabinet secretariat called Housing and Livable Communities, really aimed at driving a strong pro-housing agenda, growing the type of housing that we need in our communities, knowing that in so many places we've got what we call the missing middle, especially places like, frankly, Salem and Quincy. Folks who are working hard, sometimes working one or two jobs. You make too much money to qualify for any kind of a subsidy or a voucher, but not enough to keep up with these fast rising rents. And some of that's just due to not having enough housing. There's a 200,000 unit housing gap in what we need based on current population that's here and is growing, and how do we shape the type of housing that we need. So one of the key areas for me as a local official, because that's where the housing gets built, it was a challenge and an opportunity, and at the state level to bring that kind of lens to being a stronger partner in building housing and the type of housing we need is really critical.
Yeah, it sure is. And I know one of your major responsibilities and goals, and you've been doing a great job, is that link between the governor's office and the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. How is that going? What are you hearing out there?
You know, I like to say there's a lot of birds in the nest. There's 351 cities and towns, and we have some places that are truly unique. And then there are things that really knit all of our communities together in terms of needs they might have around education or infrastructure or how we support, thriving economies and workforce. I feel, as someone who's been a local leader in Salem as mayor, prior to that, I worked in the city of Chelsea when they were coming out of receivership as their chief legal counsel. So I feel really comfortable being in a city or town hall environment and understanding okay, what happens on the ground really matters to the quality of life for where people are living, and how can we be an assist? How can we be a value add as a state partner? Sometimes that's just resources, sometimes it's technical assistance, sometimes it's getting out of the way and letting local government do some of the things that they want to do without being too obtrusive. And for me, it's getting out of the State House. I mean, I love being in the building and the work that we do there, but it can also insulate you from what might be happening in different parts of the Commonwealth. And Western Mass and Central Mass might have different needs than what's happening on the South Coast or in the North Shore or Merrimack Valley. And so the opportunity to, really connect with my colleagues who, because I've been in office for 16 years, I had the good fortune and good pleasure of knowing a lot of local government officials. And I know that they keep it real when they're talking with me, and that's a good thing because we want to be able to, address challenges, work on problems together, and that level of communication is really, really critical.
It sure is. And there's so many variables I know that your office faces, and now even with COVID-19, with the emergency protocols officially ended, there's still a lot of small businesses that are still working to get back where they were. Discuss some of the things the administration is doing to assist those businesses.
Yeah, I think you really hit it on the nose. This, feels definitely like the pandemic's not in the place we were for the last several years, which is good, but we're still very much in this messy transition phase. Are we going back to work full time? How do we think about, using, the way the remote technology is available going forward for things like telehealth appointments and delivering high quality care in maybe a more mobile or integrated system? We're still shaking all of that out, and how do you make it work, right, in a system where we have workforce challenges and housing challenges? So we're really trying to lean in and understand what are the needs of the business community. I should be clear, I'm so fortunate to be partnered up with Maura Healey as a governor in this role, because I think we are so aligned on being pro-growth, knowing that we want to have thriving local communities. And there's some secret sauce, and some of that is having technical assistance to support our local leaders in building a pipeline to make it easier to do business, providing small business grants and assistance. Right now, with inflation so high, I was in my local coffee shop, and the owner said to me, Kim, every single thing I purchased last month went up. The cost of the coffee, the cost of the cups, the lids, the milk, the dairy products. And there's only so much I can charge for a cup of coffee. And I think acknowledging that those things are real and those challenges are real, how do we make it easier for small businesses to make sure they can get along? How do we think about the cost of unemployment, the cost of health insurance? What are the ways that we can make the cost of housing, the drivers for their employees, better? And then how do we support our local governments so that they have both a combination of technical assistance, pathways to support growth, creating an environment where folks can do business here and really thrive, I think is top of mind for us every day.
Sure. And of course now the legislature and your office too, we're debating a $56 billion budget, and there's no shortage of people looking for some of that expenditures. Talk a little bit about what you're hearing with the governor addressing the priorities of the budget and how you see it.
I mean, I think we're really grateful that we have strong partners in the legislature, that we're not a state that's throwing beanbags at each other and, not committed to solving shared problems that we have. So we feel, I think, a lot of gratitude that both the House and the Senate, that there's an ability to work together. It doesn't mean we agree on every issue and every tactic, but I think there's a strong sense of adult in the room energy. We want to get stuff done. And so some of the areas that we're excited about are both investments in the budget and looking for ways we can reduce the cost of taxation. One of the key areas is the estate tax, which, as you know, is set at $1 million. And I think probably 22 years ago, when that was put in play, that probably felt like the right number. But now with the high cost of housing and what we've seen in values really increase, that's now really impacting people who we probably didn't want it to. So we're trying to think of the ways that we can support making taxes more affordable here, particularly in how we make ourselves more competitive. We're an outlier in some of the way we assess taxes, particularly for small businesses, and that estate tax I mentioned. So looking to shave those,
Sure.
And then looking to grow investments around child care dependent taxes. We're a high cost state, and we know that child care is expensive, and it's more expensive to go to the groceries or to flip the lights on. So areas that we can save costs for seniors, for working families, child care dependent tax credit, raising rental deductions, things like that, I think help shape where people are living and making Massachusetts a place that they can really raise a family, supporting working families and aging in place with dignity.
That's a great point. And, I know you've been to Quincy quite a bit, and one of your visits with the mayor and members of the council and delegation, you were nice enough to go down to the Kennedy Senior Center.
Yeah,
and I know seniors are important to you, and some of the initiatives that you're working on through the corner office there too. I know they were thrilled to have you there, and I know you do an awful lot for the seniors.
I mean, the place was packed too. It had really good energy. It was a former school. It's now, serving. It used to serve youth. Now it's serving seniors. And we really want to be an age-friendly state. I know Quincy's committed to being a place where folks can really age in place with dignity and respect, and having both the social aspects of that and the ability to connect for services. And from a state level, I think we want to support some of those tax initiatives, everything from earned income tax credits, opportunities for the circuit breaker to really serve the needs of our senior community. We've got additional funding in the budget for those council on agings, those senior centers, to help make sure
important.
they've got the personnel. We've talked about ways that we can improve nutrition, also built into grants to ensure that our seniors are meeting the needs that we have. And right now we have a big redetermination effort underway for some of our most vulnerable seniors to make sure they stay connected to mass health and vital programs that we know they need. And that's a lot of energy going into making sure, as folks are, built up these communities that we're so fortunate to live in, how do we make sure we're paying attention to their needs moving forward in a way that's meaningful, both on the ground and, the state being a strong partner?
Sure. And you and I have talked about this before, as your formal role as mayor, as a Seacoast community, and we work an awful lot about promoting ferry service. Of course, you've been to Marina Bay, you've seen the infrastructure. You've been very supportive of not only the Quincy area, but the whole South Shore in promoting water transportation. What are some of your experiences up in the North Shore that you're going to be sharing during the South Shore in your administration there?
I really want to tip my hat to you for your, doggedness on staying on top of this issue, because it's such an opportunity for Massachusetts. Here we are, a coastal capital city. I think we're probably the only coastal capital city in the Northeast that doesn't have adequate ferry service. When you think about the amount of cars and the congestion that we have on our roadways, and we were talking about this earlier, like I'm fond of saying there's no potholes in the water. And in Salem, like 15 years ago, we bought our own ferry. We had some assistance from the state to help pay for the boat, and we use it for both commuters and, frankly, for tourists. We're a large visitor destination, and for many people, getting to Salem by boat is part of the visitor experience. The ferry is seasonal, so it operates from Memorial Day through Halloween, because that's an important day in Salem. And it has served, 200,000 passengers. And that's, cars that are off the road, a much nicer way to get in and out of Boston. Anybody who takes the ferry in from Salem versus 1A or Route 1, there's just no comparison. But we really see an opportunity to build out a water transportation network. It is not that far to go from Quincy to Boston by boat. You have some of the infrastructure already there. So how do we maximize that and not think of it as a bunch of one-offs? And I think that right now is our biggest challenge. So we have one boat in Salem and we take care of it. Lynn would like a ferry. Quincy would like a ferry. We have ferries in Hingham and Hull that are run by the MBTA. Winthrop has a ferry, also independently owned. How do we think about this as a system and a network and real water transportation alternatives, not a nicety, and something that are operated interdependently as opposed to a structure?
Absolutely. Great points. You mentioned up in your area the transportation. We have our struggles down here too, and a lot of people are starting to take a second look at the ferry out of Marina Bay because Quincy has its share of backups too. Going over to Ponce Bridge in the morning can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So, and with the two stops downtown Boston, and for some of the viewers who might not know, there's a new stop to Logan Airport. So we certainly want to encourage the people, if they haven't used the ferry for a while, take a second look at it. It's a great option. Boston has some of the worst traffic in the country, and this is a nice alternative to offer our constituents.
And Representative, even if we don't use it strictly as a commuter access, we're looking at a Salem to P-Town run. Like to drive from Salem to P-Town, it's 3 or 4 hours on given the time of day and the day on the calendar. But to be able to take a boat, it's 90 minutes. And if you think about that same stretch to other places that you may want to go, Salem to Quincy, that north-south commute can be brutal. But if you're using the water, you're really cutting down on time and giving people another opportunity to go to school or go to work or, visit family, whatever it might be. And it's something that's used in lots of places. So how do we maximize that opportunity here? It's certainly on our minds.
It sure is. And, I want to bring up another visit that we went to when you were out in Quincy last time, the Marina Bay Movie Studio. Of course, with the passage of the film tax credit, it's generated just so much more interest in coming to Massachusetts, shooting films, and to your point, you were talking about job creation and economic development, where it's a big boom.
The busy bees that were happening when we were there, I don't know what they were building. They had a couple of different sets going on at the same time.
They did.
And I think the fact that the legislature's made that tax credit now permanent is going to sustain, the movie production world moving forward. I know one of the additional considerations that are in the current tax package is also looking at the theater tax credit. And some of the same folks who are building out sets for movie sets are also doing it for live theater. And how do we think about this creative economy and the type of jobs that we know it can lead to, beyond the expectations that people have now. And part of that is making sure we're supporting these investments because producing companies and producers, they're frankly going to where those tax credits exist, and there's a lot of competition. In the film tax world, if we didn't make this sustainable, you would have seen other jurisdictions, and the job market goes there, and the same thing could happen on the live theater tax credit. So opportunities to support the creative economy, build jobs, good jobs, and then sustain them are certainly high on our list.
That's right. You make some great points. It's the multiplier effect. They're buying our goods and services. They're shopping at our stores, staying in our hotels. It's just a great economic driver. With
the concentric circles. I know the modeling, that is shown. For every $1 we invest, we're getting $5, $8, $10 back when you contemplate all of those things you just mentioned. And that's important, that you can't say that about every industry. And I think, the legislature's been really smart about this, not only when it comes to things like the film tax credit, but life sciences. How do we really get a foothold? And now we're a life science leader, and that all started with investments that the state made to grow the industry. We see huge opportunities as we think about not only lengthening our lead when it comes to life sciences, but clean tech, with offshore wind and opportunities to grow a really strong, climate community here that's tied to jobs. It can happen in Massachusetts. So we're excited and optimistic about, the future when it comes to workforce. It's going to take partnership and investment.
Sure.
And I think that's why we're just thrilled to be in a position to, work with the legislature. The speaker has been a huge supporter of offshore wind. It's a whole other marine tech and blue tech space. I chair the Seaport Council. I think that's a statewide coalition of coastal communities that work on everything from bringing cruise ships in to supporting marine technology and growing the blue economy.
Yeah, it really is. And it's funny, your first year in office is coming up pretty quickly. Yeah.
It's 6 months only right now, but yeah, our halfway point is here for sure.
It is, and I just want to thank you for all your accessibility to your office and addressing the needs of my district. And any other priorities that you're looking to address as we go through the second half?
As I mentioned earlier, housing is definitely the number one thing we hear about. Even in places where housing is more affordable, it's not more affordable to the people who are there. And the tricky part about that is there's just no one solve. So we're going to stay at it, this new housing secretariat, mobilizing housing, working at the local level, working with folks who produce housing, both for profit and nonprofit, to grow hopefully opportunities for people to stay in Massachusetts. think the other area we hear from like routinely is just workforce. So many folks looking for employment. How do we make sure we firm up those pipelines for job availability? We're excited about one of the items in the budget that is known as Mass Reconnect, which will enable us to have free community college for adults over the age of 25. And we know there's something like 700,000 adults in Massachusetts who have some form of credentialing, like they started, but life got in the way and they weren't able to continue. We think this is a really important way that we could reskill workforce, upskill workforce, meet those job needs that our employers are telling us are so critical to their success. This post-pandemic recovery requires like everyone working on all cylinders, and when you have these job gaps, it's really hard to do that. So between housing and workforce and climate, I think that's really the other area that we know we can't wait. There's a climate emergency and we need to bring a sense of urgency. And we also know there's a job force and economic vitality that can come from building a strong climate corridor. So for us, those are three key areas, and certainly education and childcare are also on that list, on areas that we think are important. But for right now, within the first 6 months, we're framing up some of those.
Well, I've got to ask you kind of a personal question. As Lieutenant Governor, you're constantly on the go. What do you like to do when you have some free time to unwind? When
I ran this campaign, it's statewide, so you're out and about and a lot. And obviously, I miss seeing my family first and foremost. But the second thing that I missed the most was playing pickleball. So I am a pickleball devotee. I was playing pickleball before the number of people now who play pickleball play, but I'm really excited to be able to spend some more time with friends. It's very social. It's a fun game. On the pickleball court. So that's something that's a little bit of a downtime for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more popular.
Isn't it?
My wife wants to take it up now. I haven't, but a bunch of neighbors and friends are starting to play.
I'm promoting the pickleball at the State House somewhere effort. So.
Well, they're telling us our time is just about up. I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in the legislative update. I appreciate all your friendship and support, and in your partnership with the City of Quincy and the officials, helping us with our goals and our objectives. We're excited to be working with you and the governor.
Thank you so much. We're really, feel like it's an honor to be in a position to work with local officials on the ground, with legislative leaders, and that's why you do these jobs, because you actually want to, support an agenda that works for and welcomes all. And this is part of it, not only communicating on your show and hopefully sharing, information and updates with folks at home, but the hard work every single day to move issues forward. So great to have a strong partner in that. I think Quincy's pretty lucky with the representation they have.
Well, thank you. I want to thank QATV for allowing me to produce tonight's show. If some of the viewers may have any questions or want to ask any additional answers, please contact my office at 617-722-2220. And thanks for tuning in.